we're heading into the time where, you know, there's a lot of sunlight, which is good. Start the process of letting go at first, right? So, one of the things I like to say sometimes is it sounds kind of goofy. In order to let go, you have to let in. And in order to let in, you have to let go. So it's interesting because it's like one of the things I've been talking about for a while is I think I've been talking about in this class, but is that because Ayangar talks about the brain needing to be in neutral or more receptive. And so, especially in the beginning of a week, and you got a lot of things on your mind, you're looking forward to getting into on a Monday morning, right? But like that, what you want to try to get for your yoga practice is a more receptive state for your brain, because your brain gets tons of information from your body and from your surroundings. And in fact, in order for us to have a mind, it has to get really narrowed down, right? There's way more information coming to our brain than what you and I are aware of, right? And so your brain, one of the things that you're exploring in asana and in yoga in general, but in asana in particular, is receiving and getting more messages both from your body and from your environment. And in order to do that, in order for the brain to be, well, the brain's receiving it all anyway. In order for your mind to be more receptive, right, you need to get the mind to be more passive, right? The brain more receptive. And so there's a lot of things to do that the centering is part, trying to get a different level of attention. And as you know, I've been trying to say for a while that when you think about what concentration is, which is one of the 8 limbs of yoga, what I've been trying to get across is that the concentration isn't just a mental concentration, it's a total mind-body concentration. And part of that, in order to listen and be hitting on as many cylinders as our human consciousness can have, both inward and outwardly, right? The brain, interestingly, has to be passive, has to be more receptive. So more information can filter through to us. So when I say pay attention to your exhale, right? We already know, well, science tells us that calms down the parasympathetic nervous system. So that's one way to start getting in a more neutral state, a less judgmental state, right? And so you're following your exhale, you're letting go to let in. In other words, to let your more of the imprint or the input that's coming from outside of you and through your body to your mind, more has to come into your mind, because there's more happening than you know in every yoga pose, right? No matter how great a yogi you are, there's going to be more happening than you know. So you're watching your exhalation. You're not worried about the exertion of asana yet. You're just trying to feel your feet, your base. I don't know if you remember last week, we were talking about on exhalation, trying to the very beginning impulses to movement, like be more aware of these next couple exhalations of letting your shoulder blades, your drop a little bit, the skin on the back body go slightly down on exhalation. So often I teach that, like where I say, feel like someone's pushing on the inner edge of each shoulder blade, right? But get this sense of the back body dropping on exhalation. Now, to me, when I start being more aware of that, my jaw naturally, and I don't know if it's because I've done it so many times, my jaw starts to soften and I can feel a little bit more lightness around my temples. So that tells me I'm doing something right, because my organs of perception are beginning to release just in virtue of me paying attention and letting go of my exhalation more. Soften the inside of your mouth. We're still not really doing asana yet. We're kind of just like following the other side of it. Because you're some combination of what you can feel and can't feel. So right now you're opening to the subtlety. Now on these next couple, after an exhalation, just start to notice pay more attention to the beginning of the inhalation. Feels good, actually. Hopefully to you too. So the exhalation drops, inhalation expands. You're softening your eyes, so you're not, so you wouldn't want your eyes to be ready to read a book right now. So instead of like now you get this kind of spark of inhalation, the release of exhalation, but now you're going to start to combine the two energies a little bit. So on the exhalation, feel the inhale, you exhale from the back ribs, and you lengthen just slightly your spine. So like as you exhale from the back ribs, there's a slight lift of the front chest, which lengthens the spine. So the exhalation is now merging with the lift that comes on inhalation. So that's why I always say there's an expansion on inhalation and a lengthening of the spine on exhalation. So they're both serving each other. So there's a flow of the lift, the release, but they're going and touching the same places. Again, soften the jaw, the inside of your mouth, the skin on the forehead. Now start to even more feel your feet on the floor, your sitting bones. So add a little bit more discipline, but try not to interrupt your breath. So now more of you is coming into focus. Start to lift from the side waist to the side armpit and broaden right at the side armpit here, across. So more activation is coming. Re-soften the organs of perception, especially the inside of the mouth and around the temples. Feel your feet, your sitting bones. Feel strength up the side body. Expansion at the side armpit chest. Witness your inhalation and your exhalation, but now your container within which your breath is happening is got more boundary. Let go of your day. Prepare your mind to do yoga. Good. And then release and take your sternum even more up toward your chin, and your chin more down and over your sternum. Again, making the rib cage an even more alert container. Raise your head up with closed eyes. Open your eyes. So I don't know. Everyone's got a different experience because I'm paralyzed from the chest down. Um, when I lift my sternum and drop my chin, right, I can feel my rib cage get stronger, but then I have a hard time. I have to balance. The one thing I want to get across to you about balance is that there's balancing issues on every level of every pose, not just on the big part of the pose, right? So for me, and especially one of the things that is really important as you refine your yoga practice and your yoga poses and you do this longer, is the balance in your exertion, right? Like, so it's easy for me to overdo the lift in my chest, right? And drop the chin. And the reason why I can tell that it's out of balance is that my inhalation, because in order to lift my chest, my sternum, I've overgripped my diaphragm. My inhalation will not be as giving, it won't be as nourishing. So there's a balance, and like I say, in every point on every pose, like there's a balance that's necessary, right? So at this time, when you lift your sternum up and drop your chin, make sure that you're not over gripping your diaphragm to do it, right? And you're staying in your base. So you're trying to balance the intensity, the varying intensity of different aspects of your pose, right? And that's going to be true in every pose. And typically, we overdo parts of poses and underdo other parts of poses. So you're just trying to figure out how to get this more alert rib cage without overdoing your diaphragm. And then let the breath come in through the nostrils and into the lungs. Good. And then raise your head up with closed eyes. So this idea of balance, right, is actually much deeper than you think. So everyone, if you can, bring your hands together, clasp them together, right? And so I'm doing it like this, right? And so this is going to be weird stuff, right? So obviously you feel your hands, hopefully, some of you can at least, feel your hands touching each other. Now, one of the things that was a big breakthrough for me in yoga was to recognize that, yes, while I could feel my palms together, my hands together, right, that was easy for my brain to pick up, right, because there's input, right, that a lot of times the negative spaces in poses are also really important. So I want you, this is going to be a really weird thing I'm going to ask you to do. I want you to connect the heels of your hands and however you're doing it, right? But now I want you to feel where your hands are touching, but also the space around your hands. In other words, you're actually there's negative space in your poses, right? And this is going to become really important for balance, right? So you're feeling, at first, you're focusing just here, your hands and the space right around your hands. So when you do it that way, when you go to broaden the center of your palm, I want you to broaden the center of the palm, but keep your brain aware of the space outside of your hands. So instead of me just like focusing this way and trying to get my hand bigger, right, I'm going to try to like move the palm of my hand, not just up through my hand, but also try to stay in balance with the space around my hands. Now, I know this seems really weird. This is what inward focus is. Your brain is actually aware of this input and this input, right? And balance is going to require both. Good, and then release, right? So here's a strange place. So here's a strange instruction, right? Balance your head over your neck. Okay, so I turn out this way, right? Because I've got scoliosis. But so when I try to go in right away, if I try to balance my head over my neck, there's that way. But also my chin goes back. I realize that I'm constantly jetting forward, right? So you're trying to balance your head over your neck, which is a weird, and then your neck over your torso. That's another one where my neck comes forward, right? But in the process of doing something that seems so focused, Notice the way your mind has to withdraw from the senses, right? You have to go inward and start to feel. Now, one of the places that people hold a lot of stress, and when you're in chronic pain, you tend to raise your shoulders, right? You're trying to, like when you think of when you have a fever and you feel like you're shaking, you know, like this is one of the pain behaviors that occurs, right? And so one of the spaces that's really important, negative spaces now, mean not where your body is the space between your ear and your shoulder. Okay, so now I want you to balance your head over your neck, which is a way of becoming more aware right here. But I want you to realize that your neck, you're trying to be aware from here to here and from here to here as a way to keep your focus even more inward. So now your brain is having to react and let into your mind more awareness and a sense of balance. So this type of use of negative spaces is actually calms the mind down and brings more back body awareness into the pose. So a lot of times you tell your shoulders aren't meant to be earrings, they're meant to be away from your ears, right? So as you're trying to lengthen this space, and by the way, this space is really important for headstand, right? Having length on the side of your head, right? And dropping your shoulders down. Good. Now, as you feel, now all that was part of the instruction, balance your head over your neck, right? I just unpacked it a little bit more, right? So you're trying to keep that space long. Now hit through your sitting bones, keep this space long and stretch out to the top of your head. Drop your shoulder blades. So sit up straighter, Bo. If you're going to give me crap, I'm going to give you crap, right? Right? All in good fun. So I want you to be rising up, dropping your shoulder blades down, keeping this space long, feeling your sitting bones, feeling your feet. Now to feel your feet, I want you to extend from the inner groin to the inner knee and press down through the inner heel. As you're lengthening here, as your shoulder blades are dropping, as your spine is lifting, be more aware of the negative space behind your back. Your nervous system is incredibly integrated with the space around you. You just don't need it to get through your day most of the time. Good, and then release. So headstand is there's the queen and king of all yoga poses. Right? The queen is shoulder stand, Sarvangasana, and headstand's the king. I'm not exactly sure why, but when I heard that 30 years ago, I've been thinking about it ever since. Like, why would these poses be so important? Right? So inhale and take your left arm up, right? And hit down, especially the opposite side. And then take your arm down. So here we have the beginning. I should show you a picture of a headstand. I will in just a second, right? So now what's happening right away when I do this action, I'm crunching the space between my shoulders and my ears. I'm telling you right now, I'm not staying long there. Good, and then release. And then so for those of you that have trouble on each side, so Alan, I'm thinking of you, so I'm assuming you're on the call, right? Like, so don't worry, you can kick the other arm up, but don't fight with it so much. Just get it wherever it makes sense, right? So take the right arm up and then down, right? And already I've done some crunching, but so there are going to be instructions coming. Good, and then release. So while I'm looking for the picture of headstand, I want you to either do some version of downward facing dog with your hands on the table, right? Or on your knees, right? So you're lifting your chest. So here's what it would be if it was on your knees, right? You're like this, and you're working your arms, hitting your sitting bones down and lifting your chest, right? So do that a couple times. Quick look at for the picture. Come on. Got a good color picture, but I don't know this book as well. Yeah, here. Yahoo! All right, and then release. So this book is called Yoga the Ayangar Way. It's got good pictures. These are 3 Indian students at Bika Sangar. So this woman does one of the sisters does an incredibly nice headstand, right? But I want you to pay attention to look how long her upper arm is, right? And how long her neck is. Typically headstand, beginners like take too much weight on their head. Can you see by how long this is that she doesn't have that much weight on her head? Right, she does, but it's really integrated weight, right? So just to get this idea that this is what headstand is, Shirsasana, right? When I was talking about the negative space, I'm talking about that space right there, because when that space there stays long, her legs are lighter, right? And so it's easier to stay upside down. So there's not as much compression. All right. So headstand, we're actually starting to practice this. So I want you to sit up straight and tall again. And you and I are going to have to do it without going upside down, which means it's going to help us to be even more aware of the negative spaces, right? As opposed to being upside down and making it physical. So sit up straight and tall. And now you saw how long that was. So just try to shoulder blades down, lengthen out to the top of the head. Hit down through your sitting bones. Press down to the inner edge of your heel. Right? So you're making that an integrated length, not just like, I'm not just lifting my head up, I'm trying to hit down and rise up. Because the way that she's keeping not too much weight on her head is energy's going up through towards the ceiling. You just got it inverted. You're having to rise your head up and lengthen by hitting down. Take a couple of breaths. Good, and then release. So now, when you inhale and take your left arm up, right? So already, I'm collapsing in all sorts of spaces. I can tell you right now, right? And then I'm taking the arm down. Now, the instructions I often give you is lengthen from the armpit to the elbow. But I want you to, the tendency to do that is to raise your whole shoulder up. See how my whole shoulder is going up? That would be wrong, right? The shoulder blade has to stay down as you reach up to the elbow tip, right? So you're trying to keep the shoulder girdle down, lengthen this part of the arm. Lift the chest, rotate the tricep in, so you're not out here, rotate it in. In other words, bring your shoulder blade in towards the spine, right? And lengthen skyward. Good, and then release. Remember, in yoga, there's 2 directions. Well, there's a ton of directions, but yogis make a big deal of this, that there's energy that moves up and energy, which they call apana, that moves down. Now that's part of, your evacuation system, your bladder and your bowels is part of what's moving down, right? And so when someone sits in a wheelchair, one of the reasons why I have like, when people like spontaneous have more bladder issues is literally the energy isn't able to go down as well, right? And so this apana, this general, the contrast between being able to rise up and go down is actually integral to our fundamental health. So take your right arm up, right? And so the inversions are teaching you how to bring energy from your head down to your feet, right? And now already I got my shoulder up too high, right? So I'm dropping it, taking my arm down. I'm rotating in. Instead of out here, I'm bringing it into midline. Now I'm grounding my shoulder blade and lengthening up to the tip of my elbow. So again, I'm bringing it in, I'm grounding my shoulder blade, and then I'm lengthening. Good, and then release. So I'm wanting you to notice something subtle.
Getting all hot here. I'll take off my extra layer. Okay, so we're gonna do the first side again. So remember, one of the goals of an inversion is to help you move energy this way, which for her, that was up towards the ceiling. That's backwards when you're sitting, right? So I want to see if you can, so take your first arm up, drop it down, right? And you roll it in and then lengthen. But so here's me not bringing attention to my shoulder blade. Here's me rising the elbow up, dropping the shoulder down. Okay. And then release. And a lot of times I have to do it. Remember, my mind is my dullest instrument, actually, when it comes to yoga. So what I do is I do it wrong for a second and then drop it down and do it again. So take the arm up again, right? Here's me doing it wrong, dropping it down, and then lengthening. What I'm wondering is when you keep the shoulder blade down and lengthen like this, I'm wondering if you feel your legs more, because I do. And then release on this subtle level. And for those of us that can't muscular act in your legs, this is a big sensation. Let's take the other arm up, take it down, right? Drop the shoulder. So here's me doing it wrong. Here's me having to work down and raise the tip and turn it in. And when I do all these things, I feel much more through my torso, right? Down through my sitting bones. Good, and then release. So we're gonna come back to this quite a bit, but so in the meantime, we're gonna do a version of down facing dog so you don't get all frustrated, right? So my arms are out straight, I'm hitting against my knees. Now, just for the heck of it, take your hands if you can on the front of your knees and push your femur bone back up towards the hip socket. And that'll raise your chest up a little bit, but it'll also ground your legs. Right, so there, see me over there? Right, I'm gonna straighten out. Good, and then release. And then do it again. And then release. And this time, do it again on inhalation. And then release on exhalation. Problem with talking is that I'm exhaling the whole time. And then again, raise up. And then release. And then inhale, take your left arm up. Exhale, take it on the outside. Take the arm behind you. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, revolve. By the way, all I'm doing now is distracting you so you don't get frustrated by doing so much headstand. Good, and then come on back together. Come back to center. Just trying to do some of the bigger movements. Up, exhale, down, turn, because as you can tell, I can get pretty detailed about certain things. Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. And it's hard, especially on a Monday morning. Then come on back to center, okay? So sometimes you could even try this against a wall, whatever, all sorts of things. But so I want you to inhale and take your arm up, bring it down. And then if you can, I want you to put your hand here, right? So now I'm having trouble balancing already. So this is tricky for me. I have to reposition my chair, right? Which makes my spine duller. But now I want to drop my shoulder blade and push up into my hand and push my hand down into my elbow. So I'm making there be more connection on the muscles, right? By putting myself down, pushing into my fingertips, pushing my fingertips down, lengthening in this vice. I'm still lengthening from here. Good, and then release. So I don't know about you, when I try harder like that, I can tell you I'm shortening between my elbow, my ear, and my shoulder. That in fact, my effort tends to collapse my awareness of the negative space in a pose, right? Inhale, come on up. Take it down. You know all the routine, right? Here's me, but now you're gonna take the other hand, if you can, push down on it, push your elbow up, drop your shoulders. So here's me doing it wrong. Here's me doing it right, right? And now I can already tell I'm tensing between my ear and my shoulder, right? And that's not right. Good, and then release. So I have to work on letting that go. All right. And then again, this idea of negative space. So inhale, take your arms up. And then down. Now this time, when you take your arms up, I want you to try to be more aware of the space between your side waist, your side body, and the underside of your arms, right? So I like that, Sue. If you're doing this, that's fine, right? Take your elbows out, so take your arms wide. So now I'm holding my shoulders up, my arms up. Now I'm trying to open to the space underneath my arms. And breathe, and then release. So I've been doing this longer than you, but you might be feeling the same thing I am, which is when I try to feel the underside of my arms, something adjusts in my shoulder blades, right? Take your arms up. Instead of just holding my arms up in from here, if I go to the underside of my arms, something changes in my shoulder blades. They spread. Now if I can do that and spread to the center of my chest, good, and then back down. So this idea of, one of the things when you watch it, when you see like a really great artist, and I think Matisse was particularly good at this, but he would make just really quick flowing brush strokes, and Picasso did this too, but differently with patterns. But like you could feel in the one brush stroke, you could feel the negative space. Everyone seen that picture of Matisse's of the ballerina, right? That you can feel her moving through space, and he's only done a few lines, right? It's just a couple of strokes, but you see both the color and the space on the canvas, and they both come into whole. That's what you're doing in a yoga pose, and it's crucial for balance, right? So again, arms up. So you've got where the brush stroke is, where you can feel your body, but you're trying to open now to this space, right? To do it, you have to feel your sitting bones in your feet. And still, I'm collapsing between my shoulder and my ear. I can feel it. Good, and then release. Now, so this class is getting super complicated. Sorry about that, but everyone, lift up. Let yourself hang, like traction, lengthen your spine. Even if you can't come off your chair, just enough where you take up. And then when you set yourself back down, you feel that compression. So the space is opening and closing, kind of like an accordion, right? So again, lift up, let it hang, and then watch the compression. So lift up again, set yourself back down more equally and try not to compress as much. Keep the lightness in your body. Feel. Now here's the strange claim. That lightness that you feel when you lift up and you lengthen is similar, not the same, but similar to the space you feel between your shoulder and your ear. Right? That lightness is part of what is similar to the negative space in your poses. So try it again. Set yourself back down more equally and keep the space between your shoulders and your ears longer. Take a couple of more quality breaths. So now my breathing, so now watch me just collapse in my scoliosis. I guarantee you from this spot, so watch it again. Here's me out of my scoliosis. Here's me collapsing into it. My breath is not as good when I'm collapsed into my scoliosis, right? I have to force my breath more. So this idea of keep it, so lift up again. Set yourself down lighter. Keep it connected to the space between your shoulders and your ears. And now with a more elongated spine, take a couple of breaths. So another way to accomplish the same thing would be for me to say to you, keep alert stillness in your kidneys, in the mid part of your back. So I want you breathing for this space and for the lightness, the lack of compression in your low back. And as you breathe into that space, gently extend down from your inner groin to your inner knee. So what's great is it looks like I'm doing nothing. It's a really hard yoga pose I'm doing right now. And if you're doing it, it should be hard for you too. You're combining a lot of different sensations. And then here comes gravity. There's where my breath usually is, right? No wonder I get tired during my day, for crying out loud. All right, so we're going back to headstand now. So now if you can, so now I have to go off balance to do this, right? So I have to lean back in my chair. We're gonna take both arms up. And if you can't, just do one, right? So both arms are up. Oh my God, no, I'm falling into my spine, right? So I can already tell that I'm more compressed in my spine. So it's harder for me to balance up here, but it's worth trying. So now length from your armpit to your elbow. Hit down through your sitting bones and up to the top of your head. Claim this space between here and here. Good, and then release. So I can already tell. So now I'm going to try it with, because I was off balance, and what right now I'm showing you how I practice, right? I'm going to do this. I'm going to put my hands down on the tabletop, right? I'm going to get my elbows down, right? I'm going to lengthen my armpit to my elbow. I'm going to interlock my fingers like I was doing up over my head, right? And I'm going to let myself scooch back a little bit so I really get the engagement, right, in my shoulder blades. Because I'm doing this because I just sucked doing it the other way, right? It didn't work. It didn't feel as good, right? Good, and then release. So now I'm going to do something I did when the arms were over the head. I'm going to have my one elbow, and it could even be on your knee if you wanted, right? Right? You could be down like this, like the thinker, right? In fact, I'll do that in a second. So what I'm going to want to do is put my elbow down. Let me try to show you again, right? My elbow is down, but now, and I'm lengthening from here to here. Now I'm going to push in on my own elbow. I'm going to drop my shoulder blade and push into my hand while my hand pushes in. And now I'm going to practice lifting my chest. There you go. This is the beginning of some of the, and then release and watch how you don't feel your legs as much. Don't push into your elbow. Don't push into your hand in your elbow, right? See how you don't feel your legs as much? Remember, inversions are just trying to move energy from your head down to your feet. Now, again, hit into your own hand. Let me try to show you, like I'm just doing this, right? I'm on the table, so I'm more balanced, right? But I'm pushing in, hitting into my hand hitting in, lengthening from the armpit to the elbow, right? And I'm engaging my legs from the sitting bones down to the inner knee to the inner heel. Good, and then release. Gonna do the other side, right? So I've got my elbow down. And again, I'll do it here in a second with not using a table, right? And I'm gonna like practice this thing that I was trying to do over my head, which is harder and more complicated, right? I'm gonna take my hand into my elbow into my hand. I'm gonna try to lengthen my upper arm bone as I hit into it. Keep the shoulder blade not coming forward, but going down, right? This would be like making shoulder earrings. That, remember how long her neck was in the picture, right? Pushing into my elbow, lengthening, grounding my shoulder blade, but pushing into my hand and pushing into my elbow. And now trying to feel both sitting bones.
and both feet. And take in a couple breaths. Good, and then release. So those of you that have better access to the table, see, what I want you to start, I can tell this is quite energetic because it's making me really thirsty. And not thirst from sweat. All right, so if you're doing it here, you know, what you can do, everyone just try it this way. Lean forward if you can, and put your elbows on your femur bones. Now, I like using the table better, but I can recreate some of this by really pushing into my femur bones, lengthening my upper arms as I'm pushing down. So in other words, I'm not just collapsing into my thighs. I'm actually working away from my thighs as the weight actually increases onto my knees, right? So I'm doing both. And from there, I'm lengthening my upper arm and lifting my chest, right? So I'm not just collapsing onto my own legs. I'm actually exerting and then go back to what's wrong and just collapse and just feel the difference. And now engage again. Because you're trying to direct energy, especially for us, and then release. Especially for us that are sitting the majority of the time, it's way easier to draw energy up than it is to push energy down. And do you think it's a coincidence that people with disability have higher rates of anxiety? It's not just from the outside world, right? So now we're going to go back to over the head for a second. So inhale up, exhale it down, keep aware of the space, drop the shoulder girdle, raise up on the arm. Feel like, you don't have to do it, but feel that pressure into the elbow. Push into it while keeping the shoulder blade down. So Pat, try to, if you can grab behind your head with your hand, yeah, and then turn the elbow in. If it hurts too much, don't do it. And then release. Inhale up. Exhale down. Drop the shoulder blade. Push up into the hand that's pushing on your forearm. Good. And then release. So now, I want to go sit up straight and tall. Feel your sitting bones. Feel your feet on the floor. Extend from the inner groin to the inner knee down to the floor. But now, lengthen this way out through the top of your head. So very consciously, try to balance the downward movement towards the feet with the upward lift towards your head. Breathe. And then release. So in headstand, that balance between the rise, the upward rise, and the downward movement, the balancing in headstand just isn't occurring here, right? And here, the idea of energy going this way and going that way is getting balanced at every point in headstand, right? So it's not just in certain places that the balance of going down and up are actually at every point in the pose. All right, so when I'm asking you to sit up straight and tall, feel your sitting bones extend from the inner groin to the inner knee while stretching out to the top of my head and still taking my shoulder blades down, right? And broadening, because remember, this is also a broad move, right? I'm broadening right here when I bring my elbow in, right? So now you're going down and up, and you're trying to balance the rise and
the down through the floor and breathe. So to me, that part of Shirsasana is more important, is the balance between the down and the up. Take your arms over your head. So now I can tell you that now this looks more like the outside of the pose, right? But I can tell you, because I'm off balance and there's more compression happening down, I'm not balanced with the rise up. Now, some of you with more trunk control can actually still pursue the balance, right? But I need to bring my elbows in, drop my shoulder blades down, lift my sternum, hit down through my sitting bones, extend from my inner groin to the inner knee, down through the feet. And now, although I can't do it as well as you that can lean forward without falling over, I can start to feel, if I start to feel the negative spaces in the pose, I can start to come into a better balance from down to up. Good, and then release. All right, so these things, negative spaces, just quick, we're gonna, we're working a lot on this midline, right? Okay, but everyone lean over to the right. Now, we're not gonna do this like I usually teach it, right? But now you need to have energy going this way, down the spine, and this way, right? So now the arm goes up and then over, right? But it's incumbent on me, keep your arm over your head, to go this way and this way in a balanced fashion. Now, it's going to be easier to do if my chest opens, if I rotate my belly up. But I'm balancing the downward and the extension beyond my fingertips, and then release. So this movement of apana as you're exerting is in every single pose, right? It's wild. That's why, that's part of why it would be the king of every yoga pose, right? So then you're trying to go this way and this way. It's so much easier to follow the drama of the arm, right? But I got to make sure I stay grounded. So I go, then I turn it over, and I'm rotating up. But here's me not doing it. Here's me doing it with my spine, right? So I'm hitting down and up. Good, and then release. So one of the things that this idea these are called, inversions are considered balancing poses, right? And it's because it's not just because you're balancing and not trying to fall over in the pose. That's one level of balance. The more important level of balance is so sit up straight and tall again, is in the effort and the awareness, the simultaneous awareness of the fall and the rise working in balanced fashion. So if I don't lift my chest and go back to my scoliosis, can you see how the fall is overtaken the rise, right? When I straighten out, when I unturn my scoliosis, I'm in better balance right now, although I'm having to physically work for it. Here's me going towards the fall, right? So for me, a good practice is just going back and forth between letting things collapse and letting things get fuller, right? And being the yogi that I was doing with my right hand, now I got to try to do the same thing with my left, which is way harder for me. I'm using my arm to help me rise. Okay, so this balance through the midline is what Shirsasana's headstand does. But then you've heard me talk about the queen of all yoga poses, and we've done more work with this in the last few weeks, right? Is the getting this really lifted here. So here, check out, to take your left arm up again. Here, you're actually rotating the tricep in, right? And getting this longer. And it's almost like you're trying to put this side of your arm into your midline by turning it in, right? So there isn't a big lift here. Take the other arm. There isn't a big lift here, but you're turning to get it more into the midline. Okay, but notice your chest, it's elongating here, but it's not lifting. So this ability to bring your extremities into the midline like that headstand, that's in every yoga pose, right? King of every yoga pose, and then release. Now the queen of every yoga pose is going to be one of many things, but getting this energy open here and into the whole pose, right? And that's going to be the queen of all yoga poses. So take your arms behind you, right? Roll the shoulders back. Try to get more lifted here. So one of the ways that I use negative space when I'm doing this is that I feel this. I remember sometimes I talk about this part of your body is like a shuttered window, and you want to open the slats on the shutter, right? I want you to reach the inside energy here into the negative space right outside your body. So shoulders back, open. Notice your inhalation also opens this space. So keep that inhalation open, and then exhale and hit down through your sitting bones and out through the top of your head. Now, do the same thing. Inhale, open that space. Exhale, but not just stop at your sitting bones. Extend from the inner groin to the inner knee. So I want you to work from the inner groin to the inner knee while this is expanding and opening right here into the space right along your torso. Good, and then release. So that took my breath away. That was actually hard to talk and do at the same time. But so what I'm trying to get you now at the end of class here is trying to get you a sense of what it is to open here and still extend down through your legs. Because that's what shoulder stand is doing, right? So quick little thing here. If I can find shoulder stand here quick, come on. Come on, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, she doesn't have a color picture of it, dang it. All right, it's black and white. But so there is shoulder stand, right? And can you see how lifted it is? Right, her neck is long, but the lift is really pronounced right there. You're really getting open, and that's being open, and you're reaching for the sky. You and I have to get that open and reach for the ground. Okay, so arms behind you again. Really try to open right here. Roll the shoulders back. But now, for us, skyward is now the ground. So with that open, hit down through your sitting bones. Extend from the inner groin to the inner knee. Press down through your feet. Broaden between the shoulder blades. Lift the side armpit chest. Drop the chin down. Extend down through your sitting bones to the inner groin to the inner knee. Down to the inner heel. Breathe. Good, and then release. The connection between this opening and moving energy towards the feet in Sarvangasana is the queen of all yoga, is the queen of yoga poses. So it's happening in every one, right? So now lean over to the right, to the left, right, right? Right, so now, so we've done this. I use this for headstand, right? Now, I want you to take your upper arm and put your thumb right into that armpit, right below the armpit. Push it and open it. Feel your legs. Now, as soon as I move it away, it goes away, right? I'm gonna do it again. And I'm gonna try to go right over my head. And try to keep that open and revolving. Good, and then release. And do it the other way. Right? Here's where we did it before for headstand. Now we're just going to take a little side bender here, it's the road trip, and push right into that spot that I need to open. What does that do to your shoulder blades? What about broadening across the collarbones? Keep that open. Take the arm up and over. Be robust here, not just in a straight line. Good, and then release. So the one thing, when you do shoulder stand a lot, it's supposed to be more nourishing. And remember, because Ayangar calls this here the energy storehouse. So opening here gives you energy in a nourishing way, right? And that's now, everyone sit up again, rise up, hit down, lift the sternum up, drop the chin, open here, shoulder stand, drop the chin, go inward down through your sitting bones and down through your feet. In this bandha, both headstand and shoulder stand are, right? And take a couple of breaths. Good, and release. It turns out the longer you do yoga, the more you'll see that almost at the very core, a few similar things are happening in every pose. All right, so practice symmetry for a second. So just sit. Right now we're preparing for Shavasana. So I spent a lot of time feeling bad. I've been practicing yoga since '91. Feeling bad that I could never do, quote, inversions. That would be a door that would be not open to me. What I realized is that no, the energy's open to me. The body positions aren't open to me. But I can search. So hopefully you're grounding you're pushing your knees a little bit, grounding your femur bones. Because grounded femur bones and legs are crucial in Shavasana. Good, and then release. Prepare for Shavasana however you get comfortable. I know this was a hard class. There's a lot covered there. Soften the skin on the face, the jaw, the temples, the inside of the mouth. Let go to your chair. Let your chair in. Let yourself be nourished. The brain is passive. The energy getting louder. The subtle energy. Lips together, teeth slightly apart. Relax even the base of the tongue. Let go of the teeth and gums. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Thank your body. Thank it again. Start to bring yourself back. Slightly deeper inhalation. Slightly longer exhalation. When you're ready, open your eyes slowly. If it's too bright, close them. And then choose to open.